always be honest. Never hide it. It only gets worse when you hide it. Just come straight forward with the truth and take the ramifications of whatever that may be.
Welcome to the Leader's Edge podcast. I'm Zach Ewell, content producer here at Leader's Edge. In this episode of our Personal Alliance podcast series, Associate Editor Chris Hann interviews Curtis Barton, CEO of ALKEME. Barton shares why he chose to work in insurance, what it was like starting a business with his dad, and explains the most important business lesson he ever learned. Give it a listen.
Okay, we are here today with Curtis Barton, the CEO of ALKEME in Orange County, California. Curtis, where exactly is ALKEME? What town are you in?
So we're in South Orange County in Ladera Ranch, probably pretty much middle of Orange County to South Orange County is the best way to describe it, in a nondescript area that no one would ever think to be in.
And you are a native Orange Countian. Tell me about growing up in Orange County, California, which seems, I think, to so many of us as this kind of dream world.
You know, it was. Honestly, it really is. It kind of grew up, born and raised here. I was born in Torrance, California, which is really LA. And then my parents moved down to Mission Viejo, California, which is central Orange County. Had a great upbringing. We had a lake that was there in Mission Viejo that we could hang on. We went to the beach and surfed pretty consistently. We have the mountains, played a lot of sports growing up, kind of an idealistic childhood, if you will. It was a great place to be raised. We kind of Lord of the Flies. The kids kind of roamed around. It was a safe community, back then, as comparatively speaking to today. We got to go do our thing and have fun. And it was a great place to really grow up, and just really thoroughly enjoyed it.
Who were your childhood heroes?
Oh, dear gosh. So I was a big skier growing up. So the Mayer brothers, which I don't know if you remember Phil and Steve Mayer.
Yes, I do.
Olympics were two of my big idols growing up. I also like Tom Curran, who was a surfer back in the day. And then I played a lot of baseball and was around the Angels a lot growing up. One of my friends' fathers was a GM of the Angels. So
wow.
Pretty much any player that was on the Angels team, I was pretty much in love with at the time when I was playing baseball. So our sports weren't always the best in Orange County, unfortunately. Our teams have failed to meet the mark on a consistent basis, but still love the Angels and the Rams now that they've moved back. But yeah, those would be a few of the guys that I looked up to when I was growing up.
And I asked you to send me a little bit of a bio, and you mentioned that you wish, I think you said in another life that you could have been Warren Miller. I think referring to the filmmaker of ski and snowboarding films.
Absolutely, 100%.
Why Warren Miller?
I just think that he had the greatest career in the world. I mean, he made these wonderful movies, got to travel the world, I feel like he had a zest for life that was beyond, and the way that he translated that onto film was something that I think really for me was pretty magical and instrumental in me wanting to really, get to the mountains more often than I probably should have where I lived, given proximity, because I was 5.5 hours away from a really good mountain, which was Mammoth.
Wow.
But my parents loved to ski, but we'd go every year to the Warren Miller rollout of his movie. And I just got a kick out of his movies. I think he would just be a fun person. I think he just lived a fun life.
You also
probably don't hear that very often, right? People want to be like Brad Pitt,
I had to look him up to make sure I had the right guy. You also mentioned you had dreams of becoming a competitive freestyle skier. So you were serious about this. Where did that passion come from?
I was decently serious about it. Well, I grew up racing and giant slalom, and again, Southern California. So let's take that with a grain of salt. I didn't live on a mountain, so I was good, very good. But there's a whole nother level that exists out there, like there is often in every sport. But yeah, when I got to University of Colorado, I talked to the ski coach there, and he convinced me, he saw me ski some moguls and thought that I was good. And he said, "Hey, do you want to come ski on the freestyle team?" And I was like, my roommate at the time was considered, deemed what you call pre-Olympic. And so we basically took after it and went and joined the team and competed for the first year. And I spent too much time on the slopes. I got a tap from my dad who said, I think you're having too much fun skiing. I think you need to get back into trying to educate yourself. And so I ended up transferring down to University of Arizona. But yeah, I had thoughts that I could be on the Olympic team really at the time. And didn't work out that way. You get to the mountains, you find out that a true mountain skier is a lot different than, a guy that does it as much as he possibly can. I can hang
Right.
with all of them, but there's another level they click into.
Uh, I was gonna you mentioned Mammoth Mountain. I was gonna ask you where did you ski in California or elsewhere?
Yeah, so I spent a ton of time at Mammoth growing up. My parents and friends and we all had places up there, and it was a place that we'd go and congregate as kids. And we spent just my dad was an insurance broker, so he had a little bit of a free schedule, and did pretty well for himself. And so I was lucky enough and blessed enough that I got an opportunity to go ski a ton when I was young, and we spent a ton of time up in Mammoth. In Telluride, I did an exchange program in Telluride where I was on, went and lived there locally for a semester. Was in and out of training at Mammoth when I was growing up. And so just spending a lot of time on the mountain and in the ocean, really growing up. And then I played every other sport under the sun. So I was pretty much an avid everything, I like to say. And if I could have been another foot taller, I could have been a pro something, I like to say.
You mentioned your father, and he later owned an insurance agency. You were what age when he had his agency?
So my father had been in insurance, like entered the insurance game right around the time I was born in 1972.
Okay.
Just prior. He was working up in LA and he was selling office furniture on Wilshire. And some guy grabbed him and said, "Hey, you're selling furniture and you're good at it, but people don't need furniture every year. You ought to look at insurance." And it was California Casualty time. And they convinced him to come aboard in a sales position. He entered with a bunch of young guys, and my dad took to it and figured out really quickly what reoccurring revenue meant and how much of a magical thing that was. And then he'd have to walk up and down Wilshire, where trying to sell people on stuff they didn't need. He could sell people things that they absolutely had to have. And
Yeah.
so that was kind of his aha moment. And so he was driving literally from Mission Viejo to LA every day
Wow.
doing that. And so at the time, it wasn't as much of a grind as it is today. But he did extremely well in the business, and then he got recruited to join a local firm down here in Orange County called Brackey Schaffnitz, which is a large regional firm. And he worked there for a number of years, and we were pretty tight with the Brackey family that owned that. And then ended up striking out on his own with a partner and creating a very nice business. I think they grew it to about, I don't know, $4.5 million in top line revenue, somewhere in that neighborhood. And then he sold it to his partner and retired at 52 when I was in college. And I think it was a little early. I think it was a little premature. He got bored real quick. And so by the time I was coming out of college, he came back to me and said, "Hey, I'm going to start another agency. Do you want to help me do the legwork to get this thing up and going?" And I was like, "Hey, why not? Why not give it a shot? You had a nice life. You were at all my events. We had the time to travel and do things that we wanted to. It's got obviously a good business. We never wanted for much. I was taken
Yeah.
care of pretty nicely. I mean, they were good parents, and thought, give it a shot."
Were you expected to join him in the business when you were growing up?
It was talked about a little bit, but I don't know about expected. I think it was just a natural to think, well, it'd be cool to do something with him. We're super tight. I really look up to him and admire him. A lot of moxie, came from a large family. His family came from Canada down to the United States, and he came at a very young age, and his dad worked really hard and created a nice life for the kids. Worked at McDonnell Douglas, I think, his entire career as on the floor, and was able to squirrel away money to build custom homes and sell them on the side and own a couple of rental properties, and kind of was smart with what he did. And my dad was lucky enough to, get educated and get out and find the right career and make a living for himself. So it was always aspirational from that perspective, to look at where he came from and where he was.
And you mentioned that you also at one point thought about becoming a lawyer.
Yeah,
Tell me
so
about that.
I went into school as a business major, and then about when I transferred down to University of Arizona, I was looking around and I didn't really like math much. Shocking. Sales guy that doesn't like math but can figure out a commission to a penny. Math wasn't my thing. Statistics was a challenge for me, and I just said, "Hey, you know what else could I do?" And I thought I like to argue, so I thought being an attorney would probably be a good route for me. And so I went to my counselor, and they said poli-sci, political science, should be your major. And then started to go through that process. And as I kind of hit the tail end of my college education at U of A, the O.J. Simpson trial was on, and I just kind of got turned off to the whole thing, to be honest with you, with everything that was going on around it. So I just figured that, you know what, it's probably best. I don't want to go. I don't want to continue down this road. I didn't really explore like I probably should have the different opportunities you could have as an attorney. But I'll be honest with you, all that reading is what I do today, and it's tough. I don't know if I would have made it in that business. So.
And eventually, as you mentioned, you went into business with your father. What was it like to work alongside him on a daily basis?
I mean, honestly, it was a dream. I mean, he was a fantastic mentor, fantastic leader, fantastic man. Still alive today, still doing extremely well. So I don't want to speak about him post-mortem or anything. He's definitely alive and doing extremely well, but he was just a good person to be around. People genuinely liked him. He was always solving people's issues, and I love that about it. I got the opportunity to work with him, and we started it with nothing. So we literally was him and I and an account manager. I didn't have any experience to speak of. I got licensed. I've done everything in insurance brokerage, literally from take out the trash to building a $2.5 million revenue book personally on production, and then building the agency up to about $10 million in revenue before we did the ALKEME thing, was where it took, 7 entities and merged them together. And then we took it to private equity and got backed by private equity.
What's the most important business lesson you learned from your father?
Always be honest, be direct, never hide it. It only gets worse when you hide it. Just come straight forward with the truth and take the ramifications of whatever that may be. He always was steadfastly honest to people. And he said, you can't always win every time you're honest, but you feel better about the way you went about it. So don't blow smoke up people's, what.
When he sold out his share of the business to you, did he give you any advice?
He said, the people will always challenge you.
Was he right?
Oh yeah. And he said, it's not only from a client perspective, but it's your internal people too. So he said, surround yourself with people you trust and people and still be cautious. He said the people part of the business is the best part of the business, but it can also be the most challenging part of the business. Yeah. Human capital is a tough thing to manage.
Let me ask you about ALKEME. You mentioned the 7 entities. That sounds like a very complicated merger. I don't know if that's the right word, but tell me about that process.
Yeah, that's the correct word for sure. So, at $10 million in revenue, we're a nice regional shop, great lifestyle business, as you can imagine. I could have just kept doing what I was doing and incrementally growing the business, but I always wanted more. I don't know. I've always been one of those people to continue to drive forward for something different. I wanted to effectuate change in the insurance landscape. I saw it as a very benign environment where I didn't think that, youth would be really attracted to if we didn't change the way that we were doing things. So at 10 million, I started to look around and I built my business very nice. I was getting a ton of calls from a lot of consolidators that were private equity backed, and some of them on the public side, looking to acquire me, my agency, and my age at the time. I was, started about 35 getting calls. Quite candidly, just the story that I was getting from the people I was talking to wasn't matching what I was looking for. And so I guess they say, if you've got an itch, scratch it. That's what we did. So I had a bunch of like-minded people that I knew were struggling with an environment we were in. We were part of a captive or a cluster, not a captive, a cluster that was there for marketing purposes. And we were all challenged by the change of leadership there. And so I saw an opportunity to say, hey, why don't we do our own thing? And so I led nine individuals out with their agencies, all growth-minded people. We put everybody on one system, which at that time was totally unique. Got everyone on the same standard operating procedures and workflows, which is unique, and said, hey, let's grow this thing as an affiliate group originally. And that was in 2018. And that's when ALKEME was really started more as a cluster / affiliate group. Once we got on one system and realized that we were double-digit organic growth, combined $25 million in top-line revenue, it really dawned on me, wait, we've got a platform. We could market this platform to Wall Street. There's no doubt in my mind, especially with our expertise. So I went back to these guys and I said, hey, look, I think we're all talking to someone, right? And everyone's like, yeah, we are. And I'm like, well, our cluster is not going to be long-lived if we all sell. So we've got a problem here. How about we merge together and we go see what we can do on our own and try to find some institutional funding, and let's do our own deal and call it an owner-operators model that's production-based and production-focused. And really, that's kind of how ALKEME was born. And then 2 of those agencies dropped out in the process and decided not to come along. And so we ended up with 7 total and about $25 million in top line revenue. And that was 5 years ago. And now we're over 300 million in run rate revenue. And done 70 bolt-on acquisitions, growing at double-digit organic growth. We're in 29 states with physical locations stretching from Boston, Massachusetts, all the way to Honolulu, Hawaii. So it's been an amazing journey and growth story. Pretty proud of what we've done. More importantly, the people that we've been able to bring to the table.
I wanted to ask you about that. You said you went from 25 million to 300 million in 5 years, from, I guess, 1 location to 40 locations. Has it mostly been through acquisitions and mergers?
Yeah, so most of the add-on, we have 2 growth models, right? The most important part that I'm most proud of is really our organic growth story, which has been double-digit organic growth since inception. To me, that's the impressive part, and of course, we've been in a rate environment, so, you can add that into however you want to add into it. But really, that just speaks to who we bring to the table from an acquisitive side. So when you look at the acquisition side of the business, we look at it in a more holistic manner. For a long time in our space, it was more about how fast can you buy agencies? Can you stack them up? Disintermediated. They didn't bring them together. They didn't integrate them. And I thought there's a lot that was being left on the table. Now there's a lot of firms that did integrate, and there's good firms that have done wonderful jobs, even not integrating. But I always knew that was going to be an intrinsic problem in the space, that if you didn't get everybody, in some sort of commonality in terms of system, function, SOPs, all of it, you couldn't effectively run the business the right way because you're kind of running a bunch of different businesses. And so, when we go to look at an acquisition, we're really looking to see how does it fit into the overall structure of ALKEME, and is it additive, and how is it additive? What are they doing that's different? Why are they differentiated? And one of our key common areas of focus is to buy younger owners who are looking to step up their game, not step down their game. And no offense to our industry, but our industry's done a very bad job of transitioning from the silver tsunami into the next generation of leaders. And so we always wanted to be thoughtful and mindful about that. And that's why we participated in a lot of the insurance programs at colleges across the nation. We're heavily involved in guest speaking, giving our time, recruiting young people, trying to bring the next level of talent up, and then building our business to sustain the growth of the next generation that's going to come in. And that's the most important thing to me, is like, look, you can't build a business based on your knowledge today. You've got to build it on what it's going to look like in the future. So what are you doing that's going to attract youth into the business, that's going to make a monumental shift in their thought process to say, yeah, insurance isn't the farmer's guy on the corner. And nothing against the farmer's guys, because there are plenty that do extremely well. But that's the mindset that they had of insurance, right? And to transition them into insurance as a more high-level functioning, durable industry that more people should explore for a number of different reasons, which we all know. Reoccurring revenue, zero capex. I mean, it can go on and on and on. Resistant to, recession to some degree. And it's resilient as heck, which has been proven time and time again with each catastrophic event we've endured, right?
That was Associate Editor Chris Hand interviewing Curtis Barton. I hope you enjoyed it. For more episodes of our Personal Lines podcast series, go to leadersedge.com.